Crazy. Was raised with my mom. My mom just having a hard time just showing her love. Never had a dad. My dad was murdered. My dad was shot to death 10 days before I was 1. Growing up in a household with a mom who was Jehovah's Witness and never celebrated birthdays, didn't know how to show love, not knowing how to manage money, not knowing how to, show love. I remember my mom just being irresponsible, being inconsistent with, how we lived and how we were growing up. That was the environment that we lived in. Broke. It was tough. And so life went on like that. Growing up with my mom, growing up with my sister, and growing up with my brother, and just inconsistent, being from one place to another. I remember growing up and going to shelters and never in one place for more than a year. Yeah, so we grew up, and I remember growing up and going to multiple shelters, as a matter of fact. Moving to Texas and being in the shelter in Texas. I remember, being in the shelter in California. Inconsistent. People would ask me, Eddie, where did you go to school? Where did you grow up? And I can never give an answer because we never stayed in one city for more than 6 months. I remember going to the thrift store and just, running to the back and looking at the bikes and wishing that I even had a bike. Getting on the bike with my little brother and just wishing I was able to have these things. Buying clothes at the thrift store and hand-me-downs from my family. And so that was my life. I remember growing up as a kid. Food stamps. Food stamps was a big deal. Going to the liquor store and buying a piece of gum for 25 cents and so I can get 75 cents back and play video games. I have a big family. We have a big family of over 300 in our family, cousins, aunts, uncles, all that. What I started doing was, so I would see my cousins, I would see other people with their dad and their parents together, and it would affect me in a way where I felt like, why couldn't I have that? Why couldn't I have that? Or why, I wish I had that, or where was my dad? And so it left me in a place where I was desiring something that I knew I was never gonna have. That was the life that I remember growing up as a kid. And it wasn't until I was about 12 and 13 years old where my mom decided to have me move to a relative's house in South County, real nice area. And she decided to have me move up there because she didn't want me to move into a bad environment in Anaheim, a gang-infested environment. So I remember going to school and living in South County, real nice school, and living with my aunt, having nice things. It wasn't until about 13 years old when I was in 7th grade, and I told myself I was never gonna do drugs. I told myself like I'm not gonna experience. I'm into sports. I'm gonna do what I gotta do. That was, I told myself. I convinced myself of that. I had an older cousin who was there, living with him and going to school with him, and he was like a brother to me. It wasn't until about 8th grade, beginning of 8th grade, when I experienced with marijuana for the first time. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I loved it. And it got to the point where it became an everyday use in my life. And my family realized that I had a problem. They decided to put me in rehab. December 6th of 1996, I remember going to Phoenix House of Orange County and went to rehab for marijuana. And I remember being mad at the world, being mad at everybody. Like, why? Like, it's weed. Like, come on. Like, it's weed. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, it's not a big, like, it's just weed. Being mad at the world. And my mom told me, Eddie, it was a minimum 1-year program. My mom's saying, Eddie, give me 6 months of your life here. And I promise after these 6 months, I'll come back and get you. This program helped me so much that after 6 months, I remember my mom coming back and telling me, are you ready to come home? And I said, no, Mom, I'm gonna stay. So I stayed at this program for 13 months. After those 13 months, I met a girl that was in there. I started liking her, started going out with her, and come to find out, her mom ended up being one of the biggest drug connections in LA. Weed wasn't even an issue anymore in my life. I got introduced to methamphetamines at 16 years old. And started doing that, started drug dealing, started doing all this crazy stuff in my life. Before you know it, I find out that she's pregnant at 17 years old. I didn't even do weed no more. It's all about methamphetamines. I had my daughter at 17 years old. 17 years old, and I told myself that I'm going to give my daughter something, or I'm going to give my child something that I never had, which was a dad. And but yet I was still living the life that I was living. I was still drug dealing. I was still doing all these things. And at 18 years old, I found myself on a bus to Wasco State Prison. And I spent 7 years of my life in and out of prison. I went to prison for identity theft. I went to prison for fake money. As I'm sharing right now, I'm saying identity theft. It's funny because not knowing that the whole time the enemy had taken my identity. I went to prison for identity theft when my identity has been stolen since I was a little kid, 18 years old, when I went to prison. And I remember going on the bus, and I was scared. I remember going to Wasco State Prison and being around people that were never going to get out, and people that were in there for real serious things. And yet, I'm a kid. 2005, I'm sitting in Corcoran State Prison, and I get a letter saying that my daughter was taken away by CPS. She was left in a car from 10 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning, 5 years old. But yet, here I am, telling myself that I'm going to give my kids something I never had. I'm going to give my kids something I never had. I'm going to give my kids something that I desire to have, a dad. But yet I'm sitting in prison and my daughter's being taken away. Shame, hurt, disappointment, regret. A lot of regret for not being there. A lot of regret for not being the dad that I told myself I was going to be. A lot of resentment. That's what I felt. That's what I felt. Went to court and came out of prison, and I decided to give my life to God for the first time. I have a cousin who's a pastor, and he's always been there for me, always desired the best for me. And came out of prison, and he told me, hey man, give your life to God. And I'm like, why? I'm okay. I decided to do that. Right before I did that, I was already finding myself using again, on my way back to prison. My daughter's living with her grandma. And so I decided to give it a shot. And I slept on his couch for 6 months. Through the grace of God, I was able to get my daughter back. I was able to become a leader in the church. I got sober. Everything was great. Everything was great. I became a drug and alcohol counselor. Everything was good. I got full custody of my daughter. I got off parole. I got a 1-bedroom apartment. I was saved, but I wasn't set free. What do you mean by that? I was walking with God, but not knowing that I held on to things in my life that were introduced in my life ever since I was a little kid. I was saved. It's like walking with freedom, but walking with handcuffs on. And so I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to go about it. I didn't know how to deal with things like this. And so I had about 2 years sober, and I'm a single dad with my 6-year-old daughter, and living in a 1-bedroom apartment, drug and alcohol counselor. Everything's going good. And I remember telling myself, I'm lonely. I'm lonely. I desire to have somebody in my life. And so I met this girl. At work. I remember clearly my pastor telling me, Eddie, be responsible. Take a chaperone with you. If you're going to be dating, if you're going to be going out, take somebody with you. And I remember telling myself in my head, take somebody with me. Why? I'm a grown man. I got this. I got 2 years clean. I got my apartment. I got my daughter. I'm off parole. I got everything. I'm good. Before you know it, I ended up hooking up with her. And I remember that night like if it was yesterday. Literally felt the Holy Spirit just leave. Saved but not set free. Went back to the things of the world. Ended up getting high again. Ended up doing a lot of bad things. That became my life. I hooked up with her, and then I say about 2 months later, I ended up drinking again. It was a pattern, a slow pattern. Then before you know it, I'm going out with her to, vacation places, and her kids, my kid, with my daughter, and saying, it's okay, I can have 1 beer. It's okay. Everything's good. It's been 2 years. And I remember drinking for the first time. Before you know it, I'm finding myself drinking every weekend. Before you know it, I'm drinking every day. Before you know it, now I'm a counselor drinking at work. It's okay. Before you know it, I'm hitting the pipe at work. And this girl ends up pregnant, and fell into a depression. Fell into a real deep depression, and lost my place, took my daughter. Keep in mind, I'm a single dad still. and took my daughter, went to San Diego, went with my mom. She decided that, hey, I'm pregnant, why don't you come, let's work things out. I got back on the ball, became a counselor again. In 2008, her and I had got into a very big dispute, and cops were called. I ended up going to jail. And as a result of that, my daughter went with her grandma. My career as a counselor and all these other things that I worked so hard for were gone. I have a younger brother who at the time was involved with counterfeit $100 bills. And so in my mind, I thought, you know what, it's it, I'm done. I'm not gonna be able to work as a counselor. I'm not gonna be able to have my job. I'm not gonna be able to have any of these things. And so I decided to throw in the towel. I left my daughter with her grandma. I have this girl pregnant. And so I said, you know what? Let's hustle. Let's go. I said, I'm done. I got introduced to counterfeit $100 bills in 2008. And that's what I was doing, getting high, drinking for 10 years of my life. Before you know it, I have a kid with her. I'm partying in San Diego. I end up meeting another girl and have 2 more kids with her. Still getting high, still doing my thing. There would be times where I would want to get sober, and I would want to get right. I would want to stop. But there was a black bag in my life that I had. Everything that had to do with counterfeit $100 bills. There was a black bag in my life. And in those 10 years, I remember clearly, like if it was yesterday, there would be times where I would surrender everything to God and give everything to God, but I wouldn't give him this black bag. Everything that had to do with counterfeit $100 bills I had in this black bag. And I would tell God, God, I'm gonna give you everything. I'm gonna give you everything, but I'm not gonna give you this black bag. I'm not. I'll give you everything. I'll give you my time. I'll give you my prayer. I'll give you my tithe, but I'm not gonna give you this black bag, just in case. Not knowing that I was making a reservation, and I would wonder and I would ask myself, man, why can't I get it together? Why is it that I only stay sober for 3 months and go back into the things of the world? Why can't I just stay on track? And I would ask myself that, and I would wonder, and I would get upset, but I didn't want to let go of this black bag. In those 10 years, I was a double-minded person. Knew God, but didn't want to serve him 100%. Even at the point of almost dying, alcoholism led me to the hospital. I was internally bleeding, and literally almost cost me my life. Didn't stop me. And kept doing my fake $100 bills, kept getting high, kept smoking meth. Through the grace of God, I had family members that never stopped praying for me. Through the grace of God, I had people that loved me, had the right intentions, but never went about things right. Wanted to hold on to this black bag. It wasn't until about 3.5 years ago. I had my older sister who would get high with me back then, and got on the ball, became a Christian, and her husband Javier, began to serve God and began to be a big part of my life. With this black bag, getting high, doing what I was doing, they would tell me like, "Hey, come to the things of God. Come to the," and I'd be like, "Man, I don't want to hear that. I ain't trying to do that right now." I got a phone call one time from my brother-in-law Javier, and he was telling me, "Hey, you know what? Please get right." I remember calling him, he's crying, he's telling me, "Get right. Please, I don't want to have to raise your kids." Those words, I don't want to have to raise your kids. Life-changing. Life-changing. I knew something had to happen. I knew something had to have happened in my life. Had to happen in my life. About 3.5 years ago, and telling them, "Look, I need you to come get me. I need you to come to my house and come get me." I knew something was about to happen because everything was so easy. Counterfeit. Everything was going. I had everything I wanted, everything I desired. I mean, drugs were cheap. Everything was at the palm of my hand. Money, women, car, everything. Everything I wanted was so easy that it scared me. This is what I knew. Like, hey, either I get on the ball or something bad's about to happen. I gave him my address and I went to sleep. I woke up to him coming into my room. I got up. Everything changed. Everything stopped. That's exactly how I got to the Sanctuary Church. Was my brother-in-law coming in to my room and saying, "Get up, rise up, let's go." Grabbing all my pipe, grabbing all my paraphernalia, throwing it away in the trash. got in his work truck, went everywhere, fell asleep for about 2 or 3 days on his couch, never left. He brought me here. Coming to the sanctuary was amazing. I remember coming in and seeing leaders and seeing people on fire, and seeing the atmosphere, and looking at the leaders and saying, man, how do you get that? How do you get to where they're at? How do you, what application do you fill out? How they love God and how they would praise God, and I wanted that. I wanted that. I knew that when you surround yourself around people that you want to be like, you're eventually, eventually you'll become that. Everywhere he went, I went. Anything that had to do with God, I went. One thing that at the sanctuary, I can honestly say about the sanctuary is that I remember being a month sober, or a couple weeks sober, and going places with him, leaders meetings and places like that, and no one ever making me feel a certain way. No one ever making me think like, hey, you can't come in here. Hey, you're not welcome here. It was that warm, welcoming feeling at the sanctuary, getting the deliverance. Just a gradual, slow move of God in my life. One thing that I knew was that God always finishes what he starts. What is God doing at the Sanctuary Church right now? Revival, there's fire, there's life. Everything that you can possibly think of is here. Growth, encouragement, inspiration. I mean, I can probably be here for hours telling you of the things that are taking place at the Sanctuary Church. I got involved in serving at the Sanctuary Church when I knew that it was something that I wanted to do. I knew that it's something that I had to do. So I got serving right away. I remember telling myself, I want to be a deacon one day. And not knowing that deacon is not about a title nor a position, it's a lifestyle. So I was already telling God, I want to be used by you. God, I want to be used by you. Little did I know that saying those words was saying, use me. Saying those words was saying, God, I say yes to you. And so the minute I said that was a minute that I knew that just like I did worldly business, I was about to do kingdom business. Like, hey, I don't care what it is. Use me. I'm here. And started with ushering. And it's cool how God is so strategic, because it starts with the little things, and then, getting familiar with other things in ministry, and just, it was my yes. What did it do in me? When I started serving, it did everything. It boosted my confidence. It gave me a sense of identity. It gave me a sense of, I belong to something. I belong to God, and this is what God desires of me. Excitement, happy, joy, all of the above. Being on the welcome team and engaging with people was amazing. Was amazing, was exciting, was one of the things that I look forward to coming to church for, because I love to do that. I love to be able to put a smile on people's faces, and how much more to do that in the house of God, because we don't know a lot of times what people are going through. We don't know what they're facing. We don't know what kind of thoughts they're coming to church with, and knowing that, hey, Jesus loves you. Hey, thanks for being here. Hey, God sees you. Hey, like, it's exciting. It's exciting. Like, I love it. It's almost like a new high to me. Welcome to the house of God. Welcome to the house of God, because I know that in a few seconds in God's presence would change their life dramatically, like it did for me. I remember getting offered to do Grow Track, and Grow Track at the church here is an amazing 4-week session that we have, where it helps you discover your purpose and your gifts. And so I remember doing Grow Track myself, and they had asked me if leadership had asked me if I'd be willing to do it, and I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And but that was me. God said, Eddie, do it. And so I said yes. I said yes again. I was nervous. I was scared, intimidated to have to lead in front of people, to have to lead people in that role. I just didn't feel capable. It can be a little scary. It can be a little scary to being offered to do something like that. At first, that's what I said. But of course, God said, hey, that's what you say. I need you to do this. I said, you got it, God. Doing my first class, and all I had to do, I told myself was, Eddie, be yourself. Pour out what's been poured into you. Said, no problem. I said, no problem, God, I get you. I began to do Growth Track with the passion and a fire in my heart for people to get a hold of God. With the passion and a fire for people to just, hey, if God did it for me, he can do it for you. There'd be times where I would see people in church that would come, that had been coming here for a number of years, where I knew that if they got a hold of Growth Track, and I knew that if they just came in and checked it out, that God would do something. And so planting that seed of letting them know, hey, come check it out. Come check it out. And them doing the class and coming out and saying, Eddie, if it wasn't for you and God using you, I wouldn't be where I'm at in my life. I wouldn't be serving and doing what I'm doing in my life, and getting to see those people grow and getting those people go from point A to point B in their marriage, in their life, in everything, and getting people constantly just one after another saying, hey, if it wasn't for your push, if it wasn't for you just, sharing your heart in there and being so real and transparent on what God is doing in your life, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And it's not me, it's God. I loved it. I still love it. To be able to see people, just transform from what God is doing to what God is going to continue to do in their life. I look around the whole church and be like, I know 85% of the people's names in here. What a blessing. What an honor. That's amazing. The connection, the people that, hey, I know, hey, I remember when you were doing this. I remember when you started serving here. Now you're in the prayer room. Now you're doing this. Now you're preaching on the corner of the street. Now you got a microphone in your hand. When I first met you, you were just sitting here coming to church on a Sunday. Now you're here on a Thursday. Now you're one of the last ones to leave. Now you're one of the ones that are inviting people. Now you're bringing people to the Sanctuary Church. This is why we do it. This is why we do it. To see that's excitement. I wouldn't trade that for anything. And to know that I had a part in that. To know that God used me to be a part of that, to be able to plant a seed in somebody and to see them. I want my ceiling to be someone's platform. I became a deacon about 2 years.
We call the deacons. What do we call the deacons?
The few. I became a deacon about 2 years ago, in July 2 years ago, when Pastor Dave had pulled me to the side and said, hey, we see you. And I'm like, see what? I look around and I'm like, oh, what do you see? We see you. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, for doing what I'm supposed to do. As a man in the church, this is what we're supposed to do. As I continue to do what I was supposed to do, what I continue to do, what I thought was normal. I'm not gonna lie, I was intimidated. There'd be times where I'd be at home and I'd be like, am I capable? Like, what am I gonna say when someone comes up to me and asks me certain things about God? What am I gonna say or what am I gonna do? And God said, Eddie, don't worry about it. It's not you talking, it's me. I remember that it's a lifestyle. I remember that it's not me, it's God. Where at one time I would stand at this altar and in my mind I would tell myself, as people would come up for prayer, don't come up to me, don't come up to me. In my mind I would say, oh my God, I would be so nervous with my arms to my side and sweating, telling myself, don't come up to me, don't come up to me, please, please, please. To where it got to a point where God changed me, transformed me, got me out of my comfort zone to where now it's like, I look for someone to pray for. I look for someone to lay my hands on. I can't wait. Please, where at one time in the world, it wasn't normal if I didn't break the law. That was my life back then when I was in the world. It wasn't normal if I didn't do something illegal in the world, right? Now in the kingdom, it's not normal if I don't lay my hands on someone. It's not normal if I don't pray for someone. It's not normal if I don't speak life to somebody. It's not normal if I don't do these things. What the enemy meant for bad, God turned it into something good. I don't deserve any of this. None of it. I should be dead. I should be in prison. Deadbeat dad. God is a God of second chances. God is a God that makes things new. I'm blown away every day. Sit in my work truck and cry. From the smallest things, I would look at people back then in the world when I would I would look at people that were responsible and just even had a car and had a job, and I would admire them and wish, man, like, I want that. I would see people that were just paying their bills, normal people paying their regular bills. Like, it was so impossible for me to do something like that. It was so impossible for me to do those simplest things, and to know now that I stand here a man of God, responsible, with things in order, with my kids, with a bank account, with a credit card, with all my teeth, the smallest things. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. What went through my mind when I was approached for this position was scared, but a big responsibility, a big weight. Of course, I think not capable for a quick second, but then God reminded me, Eddie, I brought you this far. I have answered every single one of your prayers. I will never give you something you can't handle. I will never place you and have you come this far for me to just let go of you. But the first thing that came to mind was, there's no way you can do it. You have no high school diploma, Eddie. You have no background, Eddie. You're an ex-felon, Eddie. You're an ex-drug addict, Eddie. You're an ex-alcoholic, Eddie. You didn't get past the 9th grade. Can't do it, can't do it. And I know, of course, whose voice that was. There's no way. You're not smart enough. You're not capable. And when I heard that for a quick second, I heard another voice said, Eddie, I am the one that qualifies the called, not calls the qualified. UPS, Federal Express, Amazon Prime ain't got nothing on me. I can expedite anything and everything. I'm not a God that's in a box. I'm not a God that's limited. I am the God who holds the universe in his hands. And don't you ever forget that. You are my son. And so I'm just reminded of that on the daily. The 3 areas that I'm over. Connect Group, which is an awesome Connect Groups, which is a group that we take outside of the church where we build relationships because the byproduct of relationship is discipleships. So we take church outside the walls. So it's Connect Groups. The other thing that I oversee would be Grow Track. Of course, we know about Grow Track. It's an amazing 4-week class that's going to help you change your life, help you become a better person in the things of God. Amazing 4 weeks. Grow Track. Love it. Dream Team, the operation of the church, is where people come in and get plugged in and begin to be used by God. They begin to find a person inside of them that never knew existed, which is serving, which is, I like to say this saying. When I was younger, I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I don't want to be a bodybuilder. I want to build the body. I want to build the body. Those are the 3 different things that I'm overseeing. Did I see that coming? No. It was after a meeting. I remember clearly. So this position was offered as a volunteer position. So I said yes, of course. It was you and I. Everybody had left. And so I remember clearly that night. You said, hey, I know that you work with Javier, and I want you to keep this in mind. I want to offer you. We started talking about finances, and then you asked me, would you be willing to pray about it? I want you to pray about it, but I want to plant the seed. Would you think about coming on full time as a staff member here at the church, paid position? Of course, I was like, yeah. Like who wouldn't want to get paid to help people get to the kingdom of God? Like, oh my gosh, like it's amazing. Like to get paid for what you love to do, to get paid to help people find God. Oh my gosh, yeah, words can't even express. Absolutely. Not right away. I prayed about it. I thought about it, driving in the car. And it was just a matter of making a decision. I already knew in my heart what I wanted to do and what God was calling me to do. Eddie, take it. This is you. This is me. This is me giving you something you've always desired to do. Absolutely. Like it was, like no questions about it. Like, yes, this was me. Man, just thinking about it right now, it excites me and it just blows my mind. It blows my mind to be able to, what I realized is that I'm stepping into a calling that God has always had for me. I'm stepping into something that God has always had for my life. To see it unfold the way it is, it's mind-blowing. I don't deserve this. Like, I don't. Hallelujah. Put on your seatbelt. We're going in for a ride. We're going to see miracles, signs, and wonders in people that are going to be stepping into this church. There's going to be people in this church that have been second-guessing or doubting or not knowing whether they should serve or not. We're going to begin to bring people's gifts out that they never even knew existed. We're going to begin to see people that you would have never thought would be serving, but yet are serving. We're going to raise up leaders in this church. We're going to raise up people that are going to help people get to the kingdom of God. We're going to get to heaven one day and be like, oh my God, you're here. Or I'm here because, and so that's what the future looks like. God's presence, period. Love people, period. That's the code. That's what we live by. Get ready, guys, because that's where I see it. And that's what God has told me. But we're not going to forget who we are and where we came from. And God number one. I just want to speak to anybody that's either watching this video or listening to me speak right now, that don't ever feel or think that God is in a box. Don't ever feel or think that he doesn't listen. Don't ever feel or think that you're not capable, or there's no limit on the things of God. That's a lie from the enemy. And if I can tell you anything, is that raise your hand. When we say yes to God, God says yes to us. What we do for God's house, God does for our house. I'm a living example. From everything, from my finances to my kids to everything, every corner, every aspect of my life, God has given back to me. Anything that the enemy's ever stolen, God has given it back to me in abundance. And so get uncomfortable, because that's exactly where you need to be. Get out of your comfort zone. Try something different. Say yes. You know what? You got nothing to lose. We got nothing to lose. When we say yes to God, God says yes to us. And so get ready, get excited, get pumped up, because it's a new season. It's a new time. There's no time to waste.